I'm a fucking mess. All right. 10 transformation scenes are highlighted in reels. Oh, I should say, fuck me.
No,
I
you're good.
rehearsed this, I swear to God. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And today we are diving into 10 transformation scenes. But these are not going to be the ones that you always see popping up in highlight reels or on every other person's, top 10 list. These are going to be a little bit deeper. These are going to be some oddballs, some deeper cuts, and maybe a few twists and surprises along the way.
Absolutely. Transformation scenes have had such an interesting trajectory, starting from way back when to like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where that was a little more suggestive, where we didn't really rely on the visuals. It was a little more psychological, I guess you'd say. And then the 80s kind of came along and said, hey, what if we show you everything? Bones breaking, snapping, all the gooey goodness. So we're going to kind of cover a bunch of different things here. We're going to kind of dive into some physical, some psychological, and some emotional, and how it all kind of melds together. And that's what we're going to be talking about on this list. What happens when George A. Romero and Stephen King collaborate together to tell some horror stories? Well, we get our number 10 pick, and that is Jordy Verrill in Creepshow.
Meteor ship.
I knew we had to go with some things that just don't get talked about very much. I think Creepshow gets touched on a lot. It's definitely one of those things where as a anthology series, it's up there. It's one of the all-time classics. But like Jordy Verrill and just the character himself, played by the great Stephen King himself, goes through some rather unfortunate transformations throughout this little short film.
This is always one of the stories in Creepshow that has stuck with me. And I think, everyone always talks about the crate, and that's such a great little short. But Stephen King's performance here, where it is so like turned up to 10, and he's really given this off the wall kind of performance, and you're not really prepared where the darkness that kind of encroaches into this actual story, because it really just starts off as this guy in this meteor lands, and then he's got these big plans. He's going to go sell this meteor and make some money off it. But then that plant starts growing everywhere. And I love that imagery of it because it's kind of really this lush green. It starts overtaking Jordy in his home and kind of really juxtaposes the horror that we're going to be getting into, because it almost creates this beautiful scenery. But by the time Jordy is just completely overtaken by this thing, it just becomes so monstrous.
The climax of this by far is the most tragic and definitely one of the most grueling and probably sadistic parts of Creepshow.
Yes, once. Please, God. Just this once.
And in today's weather.
But just, the idea of his voice having that kind of raspy, almost gurgly like effect as he's just saying like, please God, end it, or whatever he says. It's like, it'll just always be stuck in my brain.
When you kind of connect those dots, I always imagine that, there's just plants inside of his throat now kind of just corrupting his vocal cords, and it just creates this haunting sound. Toward the end of it, it really does go into some dark places. It's something that really starts completely off the wall, crazy, but you're not really prepared of the dark turn that this thing's going to take. And that's why I think Jordy Verrill always sticks with you.
This and its counterpart just keep climbing up and up and up as the years go by. And of course, I'm talking about Robert Rodriguez's 2007 film Planet Terror, with the character and kind of, I guess you'd say, the characters of Lieutenant Muldoon and his men.
Where's the shit? The shit's right there. The deal is still good.
Yes, Bruce Willis. Coming into one of the oddest, most grotesque-looking characters that I think he's ever played. Just the body horror here and the transformation and how they kind of play on the whole, like, we're missing frames to show it kind of thing. It's like, it's all very intentional, but I mean, this is a gooey mess of just plain gore and goodness.
That gooey goodness of it is the thing that I always remember. I was really happy when you suggested this one because it did slip my mind. Planet Terror in general, when we get into that story, just is so disgusting. We don't even know their intention at first, and then when we hear that backstory, we get the context of what has happened to them, and they really are just kind of tragic characters. They were in a place that kind of got stuck, and through no fault of their own, they're just infected now.
Understand. I never had a choice.
You know, I think it has such a personality to it. I think when we look at the rest of the transformations that we're going to talk about, Robert Rodriguez had a very specific way that he shot that, and I think that's why that one is so memorable.
I think it's also just the kind of tongue-in-cheekness of the instantaneous nature of the transformation. It's not something that's so takes its time. It's literally like the gas explodes at one point and these people walk through it, and it's like you see a soldier on one side and then it's just this gooey zombie mess afterwards.
I honestly, watching that scene, that transformation scene, I feel contaminated just watching it, just because of that grossness that is attached to it. When we talk about emotional heartbreak, that is this number 8 pick. And of course, that is Frank from 28 Days Later. This one never fails to bring a tear to my eye every time I watch this one, just because of how quick it is and how much time we spend with Frank and the family and with all of our other characters. We really develop this camaraderie that we're hoping that all these characters are going to, you know, see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then when this happens, and it's such a dumb reason for this to happen, it creates that frustration every time. I'm sure everyone gets this when you're watching a film and you know something is going to happen. You're like, maybe this time it won't. I always get that element with Frank where I'm like, maybe he's just going to turn around and leave.
I love Brendan Gleeson.
Yes.
I think he's just, everybody's grown up with him in so many different roles. And even as an adult, he's picked up some of my favorite films. It's one of those things where you're watching the scene and he is just a guy who is trying to, you know, get his daughter out of this situation. He understands, but he has this like very, you know, odd positivity about him in a lot of ways. Like he seems like somebody who's trying his best to keep it together for the sake of his daughter and the rest of the group.
I'm Frank anyway, Jim. Selena, good to meet you. This is my daughter, Hannah.
So yeah, seeing that character transform into this vengeful rage zombie that these creatures become, it's like, this is so heartbreaking.
What's wrong? Dad! Jim! He's infected! No!
It is awful. Like it is just truly the definition of twisting the knife in the wound as it's going on.
And they do a great job of laying that emotional foundation where we do feel invested in that character, because up until that point, you know, the infected are just really the infected. We don't really have that big of an emotional attachment to any of them. But seeing Frank turn after we've been with this character, we know he's trying the best in terms of the scenario and trying to get out of it. And then he just gets stuck himself over something so small. And when we talk about the emotional context, I think that's so heavy. When we talk about the actual transformation itself, it's so quick. And it's like like I said, we don't have any time to really sit with it before he is already infected. And moments later, we're seeing his death unfold.
Stay away from him!
This is one of the most iconic, all-time classic werewolf films ever produced, but it's always getting overshadowed because not only did this film come out that year, but we had like 2 or 3 other werewolf movies, and one of those just happens to be American Werewolf in London, which everybody knows as the creme de la creme, the big dog, as they'd say. But The Howling, and especially Eddie Quist's transformation, is not something to turn away at. This is definitely one of the probably most evil looking werewolf transformations ever.
Rob Bottin did a fantastic job in that transformation scene because, you get to see, the elongated fingers, the fur popping through the outfit, and just the change in the facial structure, and I think that is, of course, iconic in these sort of transformation scenes. But the one thing that always gets me is the way Eddie Quist kind of leans into the transformation. It's like he almost weaponizes it, like he's showing off. And I
He's
think
excited.
Yeah.
It's his way of getting off, it seems like.
And it's like we establish early on that he's a serial killer. And so it's like, he uses this as his weapon of choice, and he likes to see that terror in the face of his victim. And that's absolutely what he's doing here. It's like when we see that face bubbling, it's like that always terrifies me. It's like, yeah, we've had a lot of great transformation scenes in the subgenre, but this one, like you said, doesn't get talked about enough. Everyone is aware of the Howling, but I think it falls by the wayside sometimes just because of how many different iconic werewolf transformations that we have.
The performance, again, it's just him leaning into that like pain, almost like it's a fetish of some sort for him. And that is the grossest part about this. That is the scariest part about this werewolf, is that he is so excited to be a werewolf and be a monster. And it's like, damn, like that's never not going to shine throughout this transformation, because it is so rare that we have such body, like, I guess you'd say, like deconstruction and reconstruction.
While people are aware of the Howling, I just went back and revisited this one for a video we released earlier in the week of Horrors Eating Itself Again. And I was like, man, I forgot how much I love this transformation scene. Well, let's turn these transformation scenes into a family affair. So, of course, we have to be talking about Richard Stanley's The Cuther Out of Space. So this one doesn't really have a name, but we kind of coined it the Gardner family monster just because we see this blending of mother and son. And I think that's really such a terrifying aspect here. It almost feels like it's glitching out. It doesn't have the finesse of some of these other transformation scenes. And I think that adds to the brutality here. And once we actually get to see the visual of this thing, it is absolutely jarring.
Yeah, it's very it was very unexpected in the movie. I guess I wasn't familiar with the short story too much when I first saw this, so it's something that I know they took a lot of liberties for, but like the idea that this was going to happen was not in my head at all. I know it's Lovecraft, so body horror is very much on the table, but good lord, like taking the little boy and having him basically be like sucked into his mom's back, and then all their legs and arms are just kind of like misplaced. And you're right, the pain in the voice is certainly something that, as you go back on rewatches, I feel like really sticks with me more, because like that first time you're just so put off by the visuals. And I do appreciate Richard Stanley for seemingly having a really keen eye for how to balance what to show, how much to show, and then, what to leave up to our imagination. Because I still feel like no matter how much, I watch this movie, I don't have the clearest vision of all of what's going on with the mom and boy there.
They kind of use it as a baseline, but they really go into some different territory here with the monster and everything like that. And just, protecting your children is in the highest regard. But here it's like, the mother and son just kind of become this one big monster. And then you also have Nick Cage here, who's the dad, who failed as, protecting his wife and his son. And just that emotional aspect that we get from Nick Cage here. And then, we meet the demise of this monster eventually. And how secluded this is, where like no help is coming because I think their car dies because of the meteor and all this stuff and all the energy that's going on. They're just stuck out there. There's no way out of this. And it's like you definitely feel that from Nick Cage's performance.
I think the mom and the son is definitely going to hit a little bit harder for people, especially because, again, we do get to spend some time with these characters. We get to know them. We get to really care about the family and their dynamics and their quirks. So when this happens, it's kind of like, oh God, this is not the way I wanted this to go at all. Hey, I love this movie. I think it's definitely one of the most underrated films of the last, like, probably 10 years or so. And I definitely think if you have not seen it, go check it out. Coming in at the number 5 spot here, we have The Taking of Deborah Logan, which, I mean, this is just a movie that I think I saw the scene, the one that everybody knows with her and her gaping mouth and the poor woman's head in there and everything. That's the scene I think everybody has witnessed in some form or another. But The Taking of Deborah Logan and just the character of poor Deborah here, she goes through quite a bit through this movie. And it's one of those things where I think the transformation here, although starting off a little subtle, I would say, really ramps things up into some of the most uncomfortable old lady imagery I think I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Absolutely a unconventional transformation when we talk about things like The Fly and, you know, what we're expecting out of transformations. I love this one just because The Taking of Deborah Logan, if you've seen it or haven't seen it, you need to look it up. It kind of melds in this real world illness. You know, we're kind of, it's a balancing act of what exactly is happening to her, but also the memory issues of Alzheimer's and things that are kind of creeping in as you get older. And I think that amplifies the terror. This also being found footage in this kind of documentary of what's going on and her kind of losing herself. You can draw these parallels to creating this possession story, but also the real world illness that a lot of people go through. And I think that really makes this one kind of ups the stakes a little more because you can put yourself in that situation. If you have a loved one that's dealing with Alzheimer's, it really makes this transformation even more chaotic, and you feel that heartache.
You see that a lot in this movie, and I think that adds to it. By the time you get to this shocking sequence of transformation to really see what the hell's going on with her, it is very much you're so emotionally invested in this character that seeing that is definitely one of those, even if you've seen it prior to watching the movie, it's always going to hit. And I think it will hit every time because it is also just a really quick and subtle and well done sequence.
I think this one is just such a unique transformation that we don't see that often. It's very hard to pull off, but the way that they were able to do it in this hour and a half and really make you feel invested in this character it really amplifies the emotional context to this transformation. Taking the number 4 spot is, coincidentally, both Dylan and I's favorite film of that year, The Substance with Elisabeth Sparkle. Man, oh man, Dylan. This one, we share a shared experience in terms of watching this for the first time. We got to see this one a little bit early with really no expectation. We had heard a little bit about it, but the horror that unfolds in terms of the transformation, losing yourself, and the story of kind of self-perception and physical change and trying to preserve yourself as you get older. And honestly, the transformation is by your own hand as to what happens here is really jarring in terms of what we get visually, but also emotionally. You just feel so bad but you can't help but enjoy the gooey goodness of this one.
I mean, it's gotten a ton of praise from a lot of people. Again, like Luke said, we saw this a little bit early, so it's really before everything got uber like hyped up about it. But even then, this is one of those movies that I know when I recommend it to people, yes, it's either going to be you're on board or you're not. But I feel like if you're on board, you love it, because this movie is certainly very impactful, not only with the way it delivers that message about like how Hollywood will just kind of run through stars and run through people. Like, you're only as valuable, especially if you're a woman, as good as you look, you know. It's like, but age affects all of us. So, but how this movie like not only twists that on its head with that sci-fi horror of the body horror and her turning into this monster, but having the doppelganger or the younger version of herself, you know, kind of taking charge and having a little bit of a say with Margaret Qualley's character as Sue. It's one of those dynamics that is just so damn interesting. It's two sides of a very corrupted coin.
You have to control yourself!
You're talking about the dichotomy of these characters, where we have Elisabeth Sparkle, but then we also have Sue, and you know, Sue being the younger version of Elisabeth, but they don't function at the same time. So you have this idea of lost time, and as Sue starts taking over, instead of, you know, having this agreed upon, I'm taking place here, and then Elisabeth's going to take over, she starts taking advantage of that. And when we see Sue kind of using that spinal fluid and keep injecting in the same spot, it is just gross out disgusting, because you see that gooiness. Coralie Farge,
the infection and everything in there. Oh.
Coralie Farge just crafted a perfect narrative surrounding kind of, you know, aging and trying to maintain your beauty and what you will go through to keep that, because we start seeing, as we see Demi Moore wake up and her version of, you know, her dead leg or dead arm, you know, she keeps losing these body parts, and it just gets more and more disgusting and more heartbreaking, because when she loses time, I guess you would say, and when she wakes up, she doesn't know what she's going to look like.
Victoria from the Terrifier trilogy. Yes, this is just one of those characters that, like, from the first movie, you watch that and you're like, ain't no way this character is ever coming back. No fucking way. No way. They're so dead. They're so beyond dead. No. Damien Leone and the Terrifier team decided to keep Victoria alive for not one, but two films. And the shit this woman goes through is horrific. If you think the first movie is something, her giving birth to Art the Clown's head, that's body horror. That's body transformation in and of itself.
When we talk about transformation duration, I think this one does take the cake, because like you said, this is over a trilogy thus far, and we just see Vicky completely lose herself, and it's just kind of almost like a reconstruction of herself, because where we see her in 3 is not even where she was in the very first one. You know, it just becomes full-on villainous behavior. In, like you said, in the second one, that ending where she's birthing Art the Clown's head is just absolutely disgusting body horror. It feels exploitative to an extent, I would say. You know, Art is completely in charge, has full control of her change, and it's just like he is just exploiting her at that point. I mean, even there's a scene involving a glass shard in the third one that is just completely unsettling and disgusting. And it's like, we just dive down the rabbit hole of how disgusting we can get and how much we can exploit the Victoria character.
You're all she's got left. And you're the only thing that's keeping her from letting me in.
I really think that it's one of the weirdest ways you could take like a character who ultimately didn't get very much development in that first movie. Nobody really did except for art, and that was hardly at all. So it's like to have her like kind of almost be rebirthed into this awful evil angel of sorts is just it's awesome. I love seeing it. I'm very happy for the actress too. I think that it's awesome that her character has gotten to not just be a victim, but has been able to stick through the trilogy and just kind of become this demented, awful vessel and partner with Art the Clown.
Coming in at the number 2 spot, Jack from American Werewolf in London.
Can I have a piece of toast?
Let's fucking go, baby. This is it. I love this one. I don't know. It was on the brain. And I just thought, we're talking about transformations. Obviously, the one everybody goes to is American Werewolf in London, but nobody fucking ever talks about Jack. And I think that this is one of the most underrated, if not the, it should be probably, in my opinion, the poster child for underrated transformations, because yes, he's overshadowed. Yes, the werewolf transformation is incredible, but we see Jack go from a fresh kill to a mostly rotted kill to a puppeted performance as this like bones and all kind of just rotten corpse in this movie. I mean, it's really impressive stuff. And I adore just the humor and the, kind of just happy nature that Griffin Dunn never seems to lose. Even when Jack is telling his friend, hey, you got to, if we're going to get this thing sorted out.
You're not real. I don't be a putz, David. Come here.
And I just love the dynamic between David and Jack here, even in death, because, we're with them at the very beginning. We witness the demise of Jack, and you would think, hey, that's going to be it here. But then I love this unique take of we implement this dynamic where Jack does come back and he kind of is telling David this and that and what he has to do. And it's kind of like he's got that a little bit of an antagonistic tone to him, but not really. He is also trying to help his friend, and he knows what's on the horizon for David.
Listen to me! Nurse! The supernatural, the power of darkness, it's all true.
So this is probably for the betterment of everybody if you do go in south. It would be easy to see him as that fresh kill. We just have some blood, some gore, and that's how he presents himself throughout the rest of the film. But I love that we kind of get this. He's different states of grossness, and I think that's really where this film shines, even in the transformation with David, where it's like everyone does go to that, and it is certainly iconic, and it has a grossness to it. But Jack, being not in pain, we just see his battle damage, and he gets more and more gross as he's delivering his lines. There's just an extra texture of how demented that is.
Sorry to be upsetting you, David, but I had to come.
Aren't you supposed to be buried someplace in New York?
Yeah. Your parents came to my funeral. I was surprised at how many people came.
Now, why should you be surprised? You were a very well-liked person.
Yeah, I was, wasn't I?
Yeah, and I love that you brought up just the kind of relationship between, Jack and David in this, and how it doesn't really like lose a beat like through most of it, because like each time they talk, they end up like, going from the task at hand of, hey, you got to deal with this, otherwise you're going to transform and you're going to kill more people and make more me's, or we're just going to start talking about my funeral and how the girl I wanted to fuck ended up fucking this stupid loser that I hate.
Debbie Klein cried a lot.
Oh, God. Am I asleep now or what?
So you know what she does? She's so grief-stricken. She runs to find solace in Mark Levine's bed.
Mark Levine?
An asshole. Life mocks me even in death.
That is so awesome that they just don't lose their humanity when they're these two horrible monsters.
I could hang myself.
No, if you did it wrong, it could be painful. You'd choke to death.
So what? Let him choke.
Do you mind? The man's a friend of mine.
And this is such, I guess you would say, the Jaws of its subgenre, because yeah, the transformation scene's great, but I think the camaraderie between these two and how they maintain it is something so unique to the story. When this subgenre falters a lot of the time, yes, it is by transformation, but a lot of the time there's no uniqueness in the story. It just is such a bland tale, and we are relying on the transformation scene. Where this one, we have the elements of camaraderie. We have a love story here, and I think that dynamic between David and Jack really does sell this film, in addition to the transformations that we do see. That's really why this film in itself is the gold standard of the subgenre. And I think that relationship between David and Jack is just put on a pedestal, and rightfully so. And the transformation that we do see with Jack is absolutely terrifying.
And that takes us into our number one spot, folks, with, of course, we had to mention it somewhere. You guys bring it up constantly in our comment section. And of course, Luke and I, on this specific topic, definitely agree with you. And that goes to none other than Mr. Wallace himself from the 2014 film Tusk.
The way he dives into horror here with kind of body alteration with Wallace is absolutely scary, because this transformation is completely out of his hands, and it's not supernatural. It's just psychotic, induced by someone else. And to want to turn a human being into a walrus based on a past relationship you had is absolutely fucking wild. Like, I cannot stress that enough. The presentation here is so scary, and especially I'm going to jump slightly ahead and toward the end when he just wants to fight him dressed as a walrus is like, what the hell's going on here? It is absolute bonkers, but in the best way when we talk about horror transformations.
People, for some reason, just said, no, this sucks. I hate this. And I don't get that. I think this is just one of the most, like, not only ambitious, but super creative, like, body horror films ever. Again, adding that, like, twisted psychological aspect with Michael Parks's character having this lost relationship he's just trying to rekindle and just kind of re-experience with this walrus, but using somebody like Justin Long and watching that performance. I mean, it is downright on the same, not the same level, but it's getting pretty damn close to like human centipede levels of uncomfortableness, especially that first one.
How methodical it is as well, because like you said, everything's kind of stapled together, but the surgical procedure that happens where Justin Long wakes up without his legs.
Oh my god! Holy shit! There's no leg there.
Doesn't appear to be. Just let it out, dear boy. Let it all out.
My leg is off!
This kind of, I guess, zoo-like existence that we see by the end with Wallace, where he's being taken care of by his former girlfriend and his former podcast buddy best friend. And it's like, yeah, they're just keeping him there and they're feeding him, and he's completely, I guess, lost his self, and he's just leaning into being a walrus and just being in this enclosurement now. And it's just like, this is his life. We can tell some is there, but not everything. It's like he loses himself when he does kill his captor at the end of it, and then we just see him kind of go off the wall, and that's his new life now.
I love you, Wallace. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, he had to embrace it. He had to go full walrus to get out of it. And yeah, it's a really a haunting ending, in my opinion, where it's like you see Justin Long's eyes. He gives such a great performance where it is like, yeah, you see a little bit of that recognition in there for his friend and his girlfriend, but like it is very tragic. And again, that's the thing about this movie. It's a tonal whiplash kind of a film. Like, you're going to be laughing one moment and then just absolutely horrified the next. Well, folks, there you have it. There are 10 underseen, underappreciated, or just flat out interesting transformation scenes that we just felt like talking about and covering. Luke, again, pitched me this idea. Adore this. Even if this video doesn't do well, I thought this was a lot of fun. And I always love talking about these kind of things. Because again, just like Forgotten Monsters, this is underappreciated shit. This is shit that more people should be watching if they've never seen it.
Absolutely. I think this is kind of akin to our Forgotten Monsters list, where I was just kind of sitting down. Honestly, what sparked this was The Howling, rewatching that and looking at the Eddie Quist transformation, saying, you know, this one is talked about, but I don't think it's talked about enough. And that kind of just snowballed into thinking about Frank from 28 Days Later and the taking of Deborah Logan, where those are like transformations, but there's a different spin on those transformations where they aren't being turned necessarily into this wild, effects heavy monster. It's just something different. It's psychological. And we kind of see that loss of self. And I love to be able to put a different spin on that, talk about some of these films that we don't necessarily always get an excuse to talk about on our list because we're covering different topics. So I think this one was a lot of fun.
Other than that, guys, got a lot of great stuff up on the channel. Like we said, check out our Forgotten Monsters list if you haven't. It'll be tagged right here at the end, as well as we got a bunch of videos up there. I know I mentioned a little reaction video I did with our co-host Adrian just a few weeks ago. It's still up on the channel for you to check out if you have not seen it. That's a good deal of fun, as well as Luke went back and talked about some mean-spirited 80s films. So if these ones were a little too out there for you, a little too tongue-in-cheek, maybe a little something more serious for you on that list. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff up on the horizon as well. We've got a lot of great reviews. May is an absolutely stacked month for horror movies, so you'll be seeing a lot more of us. And yeah, we are glad to be back, glad to be here with you. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
The horror shit, gonna do it live. Put Splattercast, kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.